Okay, we're gonna call this February 11th, monthly business meeting to order. Would someone like to lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any revisions to the agenda? Public comment. This item is the appropriate place to make comments about an item not on the agenda, but within the board's jurisdiction. Each action item on the agenda has its own public comment period. In order to protect individual rights of privacy and avoid comments that identify students or staff members. Additionally, public comment cannot be used to make comments regarding contested cases, grievances, or legal proceedings. Individuals with these sorts of complaints should follow the Uniform Complaint Protocol Policy 7. Conflict in any organization is inevitable, and the district desires to resolve them in a productive and timely manner. Possible level. Retaliation and reprisal against complainants is prohibited by Whitefish School District Policy 3225. Yeah, okay. Due to open meeting law, the board cannot respond in any way to comments made during the public comment period. The opportunity for public comment and participation during a school board meeting is provided by attending the school board meeting in person, while school board meetings are held in the school board meeting room at 1600 East 2nd Street, Whitefish, Montana. The Zoom option is for viewing and listening only. The interaction features such as the chat, unmute, raise hand are not enabled. To view and listen to the school board meeting, click the link. If you want to view and listen to the meeting via mobile device, you are to install the Zoom app. Is there any public comments? Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, hi, everyone. Come on up here.
Yeah, I've never done this before. So
Yep.
I can grab you. There's a little
Yeah,
card.
there's a-
Okay.
Okay.
Should I wait for the card?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
it's a 2 minutes.
Okay.
Is what we typically, and then you can just fill it out after.
I
it's
gotta grab
great.
my. I'll just get. It's just because then we can put it in the minutes for.
Yeah.
First of all, thanks for everyone's time today. I know that there cannot be comments back. My intention is to bring awareness of confusion in the community about communication pathways for programs in the community. And I guess I didn't introduce myself. My name is Kate Preston. I'm a previous educator and parent to 3 children in Whitefish School District. There's a couple organizations, including one that I currently established as a nonprofit here in the community that wish to get information out to families, especially those families that do not have access to social media, traditional communication pathways. There's a lot of confusion on how best to get the information out to students, and the communication or the confusion lies with the policy on board docs online. It states that flyers can be distributed to students. However, we understand, and when I say we, there's like several like sports organizations, nonprofits, understand that we cannot distribute flyers with information about the programs available to students and families in the community. Currently working with the Whitefish Education Foundation to establish some type of solution to this problem, but in meeting with them, they are also confused about why flyers can't be distributed within the schools about nonprofit or outside organizations programs for students. And that was what I wanted to share today.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other public comment? So now we'll move down to the approval of minutes. January, just 1 week.
January, we had quite a few.
Is it? Okay, that's what
We had two special meetings, we had a regular meeting and a work session.
So, okay, so do we vote on each one individually?
No,
No, we can do them all.
all January minutes.
Okay.
There's only one in total, right?
No,
No,
there's 8 and the 14.
Okay.
I moved, we accept the minutes as presented.
Hold on, I was not at one in sixth grade, and I'm listed as being
Okay. That's
the
You know which one?
eighth.
It's the 8th.
We just make sure that,
Remove.
no, I'm sorry, Sue.
The 11th.
Yeah.
Oh, we're there. Okay, I'll remove your name. Thank you for catching that.
Okay. So is there a motion?
So I move that we approve the amended minutes as presented.
I'll second it. Okay. Moved by Jerry, seconded by Katie, all those in favor?
I will abstain, I was not at one.
Right, yeah, it's right.
Yes.
Excuse me for just 1 minute.
I approve. Okay,
Thanks for me.
you're welcome.
Okay, so moving on, we'll go over to Kate for our student trustee report.
All right, so starting off with the high school, I think the biggest thing was that our beach and bay team won state. That was the first time in 4 years, yep, 4 years, that we had done that. We were able to beat Columbia Falls out this year, and then we had 4 people win their individual events. So that was, yeah, pretty.
I'll say out loud that one of those people is Jake Dunker. Jake and his partner Bjorn won policy debate.
Yes, able to take that. So yeah, it was a really fun time and it was really cool to see that happen. So that was awesome. Also staying on staying on the theme of speech and debate, we have the national qualifying tournament coming up this Friday and Saturday. So once again, reach out to Sarah Miller if you would like to judge or if you know anyone who is interested in judging. And then there will be a judges clinic tomorrow night in the high school library at 6 for anyone who needs help judging in case you're scared, which seems to be everyone's concern, so they feel underqualified. But I can tell you now, you don't need qualifications whatsoever. It's a really good time and you'll maybe learn something, maybe not, but it's just a really good time. So if you're free, absolutely go ahead and do that. Continuing on, there's a lot of activities right now. So we have swim is having their state tournament this weekend in Great Falls. Wrestling is having their state tournament this weekend in Billings. Currently, varsity boys and girls are playing Sea Falls right now at home. But then after next week, we're kind of ending up all of our winter activities are kind of coming to a close. We also have Northwest Band in Spokane this weekend. So a lot going on this week, but after that, all those activities are kind of coming to a close. Last week, we had the DECA straight competition, which is kind of like a business club. That was in Missoula last week, and we had 27 students qualify for the international DECA conference in Orlando this year. We also had the Poetry Out Loud regional competition last week and had 2 students qualify for the state competition later in March. Science Olympiad state competition will be later again in March, and then HOSA, or our Health Science Club, will be hosting a blood drive on March 13th. So if you're interested in donating, reach out to me. I can get you on that agenda, hopefully. Tomorrow we have ASVAB testing, so that's just the military entrance exam. So that'll be happening Black Box tomorrow at the high school. So a pretty cool thing for anyone who's looking to go into the military or just wants to see how they would score. Let's see, next weekend, there's the winter formal, February 22nd, still kind of up in the air whether or not that's happening, but as of now it is happening. That's going to be a La La Land themed dance, so that'll be pretty fun opportunity for our students and a great way to raise some money for student council. We have ACT prep sessions starting every Wednesday after school, just kind of practice tests, but a good way to get students prepared for that very scary exam coming up in April. And then, yeah, I guess just the main thing is that we had a wrap up of our semester 1 and are starting to plan registration for next year's classes and just going through this long haul until spring break. So yeah, kind of the dark month, as I've heard a lot of people call it. Oh, and then this past weekend's Leo Club, which is our like a volunteering club at the school, hosted the Kitty Carnival here at the middle school. That was a huge success. We had way more people than had ever been there, so that was a really great community opportunity. Moving down to middle school. 5th through 8th graders took their iReady assessments and they had growth shown throughout the entire school with 99% completion rate from eligible students. So pretty good numbers there from everyone who's taking it. And then the WMS MTSS leadership team reports an increase in attendance rates from a year ago. And there's been some school or some student-led initiatives in communicating the importance of being at school. So it's just good to see people actually coming to school, which is always good. The middle school held their spelling bee last week. They had one 5th and 6th grade champion and then one 7th and 8th grade champion. And the 8th grader who won it will go into the Flathead County Spelling Bee to represent the middle school later this month. 7th and 8th graders are currently doing their annual bowling unit. So they head down to Pinnacle for last week and then also this week. And they kind of learn how to score without looking at the screen and get better at bowling, which is, I think, a great unit. Because who actually knows how to score a bowling card? Not many people, so it's kind of cool to learn how to do that. Middle school's Girl Up Club also participated in that kitty carnival, and they were raising money by selling tickets and different goodies and stuff like that for the LA Fire Relief Fund. So that was pretty cool that we have some people involved all the way out here. 5th and 8th grade is doing their second round of mass testing this week. The 7th and 8th grade girls basketball program, is in the middle of their season. Apparently they're seeing a lot of success through growth in their skills and also winning a lot of teams. And then kind of getting into that registration coinciding with the high school, the freshman team from the high school is coming to the middle school at the end of this month to present the first information about high school registration to the 8th graders. So very exciting time to move on up to the high school. I remember that my 8th grade year and it was very scary, but exciting times. And then getting them down to Bull Down, they finished their iReady diagnostics this week and they'll soon be done with their mass testing for the 3rd and 4th graders. February 20th is the Muldown family bingo night. So there's going to be some, all the Muldown families are able to come. There's going to be food, snacks, and of course bingo. So another good community events. And then Muldown also just started their Royal Readers Volunteer Read Aloud program. And then on Fridays, people from around the community have signed up to read aloud in libraries to people that have classes in the library that day. So kind of just another cool thing to get our community involved with the schools. So yeah, that is all I have across all 3 schools, and I guess district wide, just getting through till spring break, trucking on. Yeah.
Thanks. Any
Yeah.
questions?
I just wanted to clarify, did you participate in the poetry out loud?
I did, yes, I qualified for state. Thank you.
And are you also in a science Olympiad?
Science Olympiad. yeah.
Olympiad, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, what aren't you?
I was like, and your student council, and you're here, so thank you very much.
Yes.
for what you said. Yes.
You're an active
And
student.
Becca, are you
Yeah.
elected?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you for gracing us with your presence, your amazing report as always.
The kitty carnival was fun. I was also.
Were you playing the games?
I tried a couple of them. Yeah, there was. The kids were hanging from that bar for.
That was
I
my
don't-
idea.
That's
I'll
what was.
take credit for that.
I don't think I would have been able to lift my, I didn't do it, but I would have been able to. Yeah, it was good.
I'm curious, speaker night, who was playing that? How did that happen? That sounds so fun.
Yeah, we had our literacy luau last year. That was kind of our family night. And so this year we decided to do it in February and
I have some friends back down where I came from and they tried it down there and loved it, so we're gonna try it out.
That's so cool.
I'm excited. It'll be lots of fun.
Awesome. What a cool opportunity for parents to get to meet each other, families to get to.
Yeah,
hang
and
out.
families all together coming to play together,
Yeah.
and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. You guys.
And thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
We'll move on to a WEA update.
Excuse the outfit. We also were in kindness week at Muldown. And we were to dress like our friends, so there were 10 of us in this amazing skirt today at school. Like, the little girls were very excited about it. So here I am. I feel very silly.
Nothing.
Just like you all have been like, okay, it's next level. We are just excited to be moving into our IBB with you guys that's coming up here. On the 20th is our first one. There's a lot of legislature that's going on that we're watching really closely, and our union members are very active in voicing support of our public schools and how we can move forward in that way. And I'm excited to look at all of our retirements and celebrate those friends that will be leaving us. Forward to that next chapter for them.
Thank you. Go kindness week.
It's Mismatch Day tomorrow.
Our
Mismatch.
WT.
No,
Wacky mismatch.
all the things.
So the classified staff is also looking forward to IDB. Got lots of fun things to talk about. Unlike Jake, I'm gonna talk about myself. While I'm up here. I was invited to the National Education Association annual ESP conference, which is Education Support Professionals. It is being held in Louisville, Kentucky. I am a fully funded member, so it doesn't cost the district, it doesn't cost anybody anything. NEA is actually paying for me. I am going with the classified president from Columbia Falls, Emily. She's going to be a presenter, so I'm very excited about that. And I was going to look up the sections that I was taking, and I could not find it fast enough. So I just wanted to read some of the offerings that they give at the ESP conference, just because they're really cool. So they have elevating excellence through ESP peer mentoring, trauma in schools. It's all about relationships. I wrote some of them down so that I could find them real quick. ESP, no, that wasn't it. And so then when I scrolled through, like, none of these sounded familiar. Like, am I taking that? I couldn't remember any of the things that I was taking. But investing in paraeducators, facilitating ESP PLCs to engage members and grow. There are things like, should have printed this out. I wrote down the numbers and then now I can't find them in here, sorry. Building winning teams, effective paraeducator teacher collaboration, data-driven support for ESPs. There are things like, this one sounded really interesting, dysregulation versus disrespectful behavior, de-escalate with dignity and humility. Effective para-teacher communications. ESP mentoring, increasing professional satisfaction and member retention. So there's all kinds of different sections that you sign up for, and they have very specific sections for clerical services, for paraeducators, for custodial and maintenance staff, things like that. And so then they'll have sections where you go that are just within your craft. So that's in March, right before spring break, and I'm excited to go. I have been to the National ESP Conference twice before, and this is probably my last time. So I'm going to enjoy it, and I appreciate all of you guys. When I go to the ESP conference, I always come back saying, not only do we live in the last best place in Montana, we have a lot of good protections and rules, but the best school district also. So
Nice.
thank you.
Thanks to
Thank
you.
you for going.
Thank you. Right.
So we'll move into the discussion and action items. Okay, first is the WHS MTSS update. Is this okay?
Thank you for the introduction and just the invitation to come. I know it's like. Okay. So our MTSS team, a lot of us went to Summer Institute last summer, and Cole and I have done it a few times and just learned so much interesting data points and things that interventions and incentives that we can set up in our schools. And one of the big things that we talk about in MTSS is that attendance piece, and attendance matters. Even if it's through like chronic absenteeism, school sponsored events or parents are going on family trips. If you're not in your seat, you're not learning. So that's what we're looking at. So I get the opportunity to introduce Cole Davidson, our data guru, who implemented it in 9th grade, and we have carried it through in our collaboration teams to 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So he's going to talk about all of his data information for us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Hallie. I'm Cole Davidson. Yeah, it's a lot of what we look at in both the 9th grade team and MTSS is data driven, of course. There was a really push for that a few years ago. We really started to dig into a lot of it. I have a PowerPoint I think you guys have access to on chronic absenteeism at WHS. This was a kind of a task we were working on this entire school year thus far, was to see what's going on with attendance and its effects on our students' learning. Just to get into a definition, when we talk about chronic absenteeism, what we're talking about is attendance rates that are lower than 90%. If you miss more than 1/10 of the school year, and obviously since we started doing this data for this year, we haven't gone through a full year. So I broke it down into basically looking at midterm and quarter attendance and midterm and quarter GPAs and looking at those checkpoints. And then when we look at chronic absenteeism, it does not care about why a student is absent. It's just they're not there. Whether it's excused by a doctor, truant, it doesn't differentiate. Unfortunately for us, we can't quite get past certain codes in Infinite Campus that would count a student as not absent under certain codings, and they're like extended absence or verified absences. Those don't show against their attendance rate right now. When we look at the first quarter GPA, if we go to that one, oh, that's a bigger screen than this. That's good. When we looked at the first midterm GPA for quarter one, we had 180 chronically absent students just in that first half of the first quarter. Left us with 432 who are not chronically absent. You'll see those totals fluctuate a little bit just due to students unenrolling or students moving into our district. So at that time, we had 612 students. The average GPA at that checkpoint for the students that were chronically absent was at 2.65, with the average GPA for the students that were in attendance was 3.36. And then our average attendance rate, when I kind of flip the variables a little bit, the average attendance rate for students who had at least a 2.0 GPA was 92.63. And then if we looked at the students that were below a 2.0 GPA, their average attendance rate was lower than 80%, just under 80%. So we're starting to see a disparity there just within that first midterm. When we got to the end of the quarter, again, 190, roughly similar numbers to the midterm, and not everyone that was chronically absent at midterm was chronically absent at the end of the quarter, and vice versa. So some students got their attendance rate up above that 90% by the end of the quarter, and some fell below. And again, we see that similar GPA disparity there at the end of quarter one, 2.7 for those who were chronically absent, and then 3.35 for those that were not. And then again, a similar attendance rate when we looked at the students that had a 2.0 or above and a 2.0 or below. So really seeing a trend in that first quarter as to what happens when you're not in school. Quarter two, at midterm, we see a large increase in the number of chronically absent students. So quarter two is where we really start to see the attendance rates fall off a little bit. Almost half of the student body was chronically absent by midterm of quarter two. And we still see a similar academic disparity between those students and how they're performing in school. So now that's affecting a larger portion of our student body. And then again, the attendance rates for students that were here that had at least a 2.0 and the students that were below a 2.0, matching what we saw earlier. And then by the end of quarter two, this is just the quarter GPA and not the semester GPA that we're looking at here. Just with this data, we had more chronically absent students than we had students who were not chronically absent. So we saw more than half of our student body missed at least 10% of quarter two by the end of the quarter. And again, there's a disparity between the average GPAs. The gap is closing a little bit, and that's most likely, without digging into hours and hours of data analysis, that's most likely due to just the fact that a large portion of students that were just above that 90% threshold fell just below that 90% threshold and took their solid GPAs with them. But it's again seeing that if a student had above a 2.0, that their attendance rate was nearly 90%. And if a student was below 2.0, their attendance rate was down to 71%. And it's really just showing us that, yeah, it matters. Being in the school for a class period actually matters for academic performance. And then I have some graphics here for the chronic absenteeism rates and kind of a GPA, or which one's the next slide? Yeah, okay. This one is the one that's like the most concerning graphic, I thought, as far as attendance goes. That's quarter one. Green is students that were here at least 90%. And then when we go to the next slide, quarter two looks pretty rough. So if we go down there, you're all right. And the orange is the students that were chronically absent, but were within 5% of making the cut. So close. And we can see that that red wedge is really starting to take over at the midterm. Backs off a little bit. Kids are getting closer to 90%, but we go down to 47% students that would not qualify as chronically absent at that point. So it's something in quarter two, we see, sicknesses and more vacations and things of that nature, but we're really seeing that huge increase, which is concerning, especially when we look at the GPA distribution. Each one is like two paired sets of bar graphs there. So if you look at the CA and midterm of quarter one is what that first set of bar graphs is, and then the same time period, but for the students who are not chronically absent. The most telling thing here, I think, is those red bars. That's the students that have below a 1.0 GPA. The red and the orange bars would be below a 2.0. And you can see the disparity between the chronically absent students, how big those red and orange bars are versus the not chronically absent students. It's really impactful. And I think the next slide should be for ninth grade only. Yeah. And it's very similar as to what we saw with the entire student body. However, something to take note of is if a student was here at least 90% of the time, there was a 0% chance that they had a GPA below 1. It didn't happen for that, any of the checkpoints throughout the year or so far throughout the semester. So we really see the importance, especially for ninth graders, with just being in school. And then we have just a couple pieces of data you can look at, but it's looking at how many Fs students had if they were chronically absent 0 times, how many Fs they had, or how many Fs there were among students who were chronically absent 1 quarter, and then for both quarters. And we can see it's almost 9 times. Is that number right? No, 8. We changed it. It's 18 times. Yeah, 18 times the number of Fs per student if they were not, or if they were chronically absent both quarters versus if they were not chronically absent ever. Should be 18 times there. And then freshmen, we see a similar result. So we can kind of run past that really quick. So when we look at our initial, 7.07 Fs per student if they were here, and 0.68 if they were not. Kind of telling. And then when we look at the initial summary findings, what we see is the end of the first semester is where you see a lot of students that are borderline grades that are pushing to get that. What do I need to do to get a B? What do I need to do to get an A? What do I need to do for that, just that last little nudge? So I think that's why we see the gap closing a little bit at the end of quarter two, is just because of those pushes from students. We saw the second quarter attendance rate drop significantly when compared to first quarter, 4% drop in attendance. And again, the GPA increased, and I think that's again due to the push at the end of the semester. We had several students who had low attendance and low GPA first quarter that were unenrolled by second quarter, who were not in our data for that quarter. And then several, like I said, students that had higher GPAs that went from 90%, just above that, to just below 90%. So we're seeing some of those trends as the Q2 ends there. And again, the impact of a couple of our codes for attendance are not accounted for just because they don't show in the data, so there's still some. It's a little bit muddy when we look at a couple of those things. I think that's the whole thing, right? Oh, next steps. Yeah, thank you. All right, the next steps, we're gonna look further into interventions with MTSS. We've already talked about looking at different, what has been done by different districts to try to improve attendance and just kind of the MTSS playbook that is available to look at too. We'd also like to look for variables that attribute to this decline, why students are missing more second quarter. Is it because of sickness? Is it because of activities? Is it because of vacation? What is it? And then the plan is to continue to collect and analyze this data. And ideally, what the ninth grade team has talked about as well, so I'm on the ninth grade team, we talked about trying to develop some sort of early intervention process before students ever step foot into our building with, along with the middle school, to try to figure out who we should be looking for, communicating with over the summer, talking about the importance in particular with those parents of their students attending school, just based on historical data for those kids. So just kind of some of our ideas that we're running through in MTSS and with the ninth grade team. All right, and I think the school board's gonna look at this more in work sessions as well, some data push
coming up in March. We plan to look at data overall, including some of this data.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Wonderful. Anyone have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
I just, I'm sorry, I think you said it at the beginning, the school sanctioned activities. Does that count into the chronic absenteeism then, like if you miss every Friday for cross country or something?
That does count, yeah, that does code against their attendance rate,
Okay.
yes. It doesn't count as far as like the number of days they can miss before they do not receive credit, but it does show on
It
there.
would show into this data.
It would show into that data, yep. Yeah.
Maybe one of the reasons for the second semester increase is because that's when a lot of the activities come to a head. Like, how many days of school, I wonder, Jake, are you missing for like DECA, poetry, speech and debate, like all of those activities?
In second quarter.
Right, and so it's a lot of days where they all kind of pile on each other.
Yeah.
So I think like, it's so awesome that we have so many students involved, like I think that's one of our biggest bragging points. But it's also probably a reason that we have.
Yeah, and I think if we wanted to really dig into that, we could probably look at GPAs for students who miss specifically for school sanctioned activities and who have a high number of those absences, and GPAs for students who miss for other reasons, and see if there is some sort of connection, or if it just doesn't matter why you miss. You just miss school and you miss instruction, and that hurts your GPA. So
Like, I understand why you lump them all together and then they're all under this one definition, but I think it'd be so helpful to disaggregate that data so that you could see what kind of absences are leading to what kind of results.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wondered is, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the policy is after 6 absences that aren't related to school, then you don't necessarily get your makeup work accepted, or you don't have makeup work. It's on page 7 and 8 of the handout and of the handbook, I mean. I wonder, how does our goal to support students' learning match with that particular policy?
that's a very good question. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that helps their achievement or not.
Right. Yeah.
And what is the time of this data? Can you say again, like is it the first quarter, second quarter this year?
This year, yep,
Okay.
this is our current students in our building right now. It's their data, yep.
Super interesting. Yeah,
Thank you.
taking a-
Cole, did you also share with them how you reach out to those kids who are absent? Did you touch on that
We
at all?
Yeah, not really in
Yeah.
that, but we do, within our collaboration teams, we reach out to the kids that are having the attendance issues and the lower grades and things like that. So we are in contact with them, and that's why those collaboration teams are so important. Because they do look at all this information and then they go out and meet with these students and call home and check-ins all the time, so.
Right, yeah, the ninth grade team kind of created these processes for looking at which students seem to be struggling the most and how to track that, and then how to contact parents, how to track our interventions that we're trying with them. And then Michelle Barton and I went around to the other grade level collaboration teams and kind of shared our processes with them. They were doing similar things, but we're trying to kind of streamline it so that everybody's fairly consistent, and that if someone goes from one grade level team to a different one the following school year, that they're just starting right back where they left off, just at a different level.
One more.
Yeah.
I know that I think it's like Glacier, if you don't miss a certain number of days, you don't have to take finals. I think that there are some incentives that don't necessarily line up with our learning goals. When you're looking at how other schools are incentivizing coming to school, I think that that's something to think about, you know, like just getting out of finals for learning or not for learning, I don't know. But I think a consortium that might be really helpful that Dave went to is the mountain schools. Because I think they have really similar demographics and issues to us that maybe schools around us don't have as much. Just a thought when you're looking at how other schools do their policies.
I think some of the latest research related to that comment is that in this area, this is nationwide issue.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
since following the pandemic, and so the attendance throughout the whole country and in specific locations. But what they're finding is that very issue is that what you do in response has to be really directly related to your own population and the why behind the attendance in your own community.
Like I bet we have a lot of people who take vacations.
Right.
And it might be helpful to educate parents about, this is why, these are the results, you know, things like that, that maybe our surrounding schools don't have quite the same.
And that's what's a little frustrating with this data is because those family trips are XA. So they're not counted against it. So that's not included in your data. So as soon as those XAs are included.
It's even.
Interesting.
See a different,
Yes.
Yeah. I
Because of
think
trips. We have a lot of trips.
Yes, a different dynamic that's probably that group that Dave was with. It's outer days. Outer days, their own thing.
There's a lot of things, yeah.
But that is
You
with
need
D,
to
not
map
professional
town
development.
communities, things like that, there are differences in, you know, economic differences, things, all kinds of issues that are different that we face that impact our students' ability to attend. And I think that's important for us to think about. What I value so much about this and why I really liked this presentation tonight is this is a great example of what our MTSS teams do. This is a building MTSS team looking at specific data related to the area we identified as the priority this year as a district, MTSS. So this is the building team really honing in on this, trying to figure out what is it that's occurring and trying to figure out from that data the why, what's happening and what we can do to help. So it's great example of that process in action.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just one, how hard is it to disaggregate this information and really hone in on what the reasons are for the absences?
Well.
I mean, well, number one, kids don't always tell you the straight story, I get that.
True.
But if they've got a doctor's note, we know if they're, you know.
Yeah,
Sick and that kind of thing.
I
We
think
know most of the times they're skiing too.
also true. I think I can't actually pull data. I can't run reports myself, so I can't do any of the fine tuning to go like, well, what would happen if we took out this code or put in this code or just look specifically at. But it would take a little while. It would take some hours of work to run through it and you know, put in the work in the spreadsheet to make it actually pull what I need to pull. Once I had it, I probably could expedite the process on the second run through, but yeah, the first time through, I mean, for this, the first time through took many hours of work just to get the data that we have. So yeah, it would be a next level type of thing to look into as to why the absences occur and then what impact those specific absences have in relation to academic outcomes. Yeah.
It's clear this took a lot of time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really meaningful information and helpful to share. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, you're good, thanks.
Thanks.
So next, yeah, we'll do our early literacy program update.
Good evening, how's it going?
Good.
So our early literacy program started this year. It's a 4-year-old program, you have to be before September 10th. Involved a screener, an early bird screener, where students come in and go through a process of just, showing what they know, letter names, sounds, those kinds of things. And then there's a cutoff, and we didn't get as many as we were hoping in the very beginning. But we did get enough to run the program, and it was nice to, we have a morning session and an afternoon session. Of course, the morning session is the most popular one, and for parents, of course. And so, but as time went on, we got a few more kids that come in, and so I think we're at 7 and 5 now, 7 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon, hoping to grow. And so I was asked to do this, or Kelly and I were asked to do this. I went to Jess Hansen, who's our early lit teacher, and I said, hey, give me some, just give me some data, give me some stuff, give me some information about the program. And so I can share it with the board. And then she wrote this nice little narrative. And so I started looking at it and thinking, okay, what are talking points here and stuff? And I thought, this is perfect, so I'm going to read it to you. So Jess wrote, overall, the early literacy program is doing well. We now have completed 3 of our domains for thematic units, which are all about me, families and communities, and animals. Each domain is around 20 days of instruction. Students have learned about the human body, the 5 senses, family traditions, careers, what humans and animals need to survive, some animal categorization, mammals and fish, etc., among other things. In addition to the domains, we have done several of the classic tales and important people in American history mini units. With the classic tales units, we are learning about story elements like characters and settings. And we are practicing sequencing events of story. During the important people units, we learn about some of the most important Americans in U.S. history and how they made a difference in our country. In our daily skills groups, we've been working hard on differentiating rhyming words, practicing handwriting strokes, identifying letter names and sounds, segmenting syllables, and isolating the first sound in words. Soon, we will learn to put some of the sounds that we've practiced together to begin to read words. Students are also learning to write the letters correctly and to write their names legibly. I know some 7th and 8th graders. We also do an art project or craft related to our learning every week to practice fine motor skills and have some fun. Our days are busy, but the students seem to be engaged. The parents have been giving positive feedback about their children's learning and enjoyment of school, and they do enjoy it. In the early bird mid-year screening, all students showed growth in at least one area. All students improved their letter names and sound recognition, and we saw big growth in rhyming. The oral sentence comprehension and vocabulary portions didn't show as clearly the growth as the other areas, but they weren't necessarily related to the topics we've been learning about. Students have overall been able to show their learning in the domain assessments in the areas of comprehension and vocabulary. And like I said, our enrollment has grown throughout the fall, and now they're at 7 and 5. 4 additional potential students were screened this fall but tested above the cutoff. I'm hoping this shows growth. This is just saying, I'm hoping this shows growth, growing interest in the program and knowledge about it, which will hopefully lead to the higher enrollment for next year. So Kelly's going to talk about screening and what we've got planned moving forward. And if you have any questions when she's done, we'll welcome them.
Yes, I can say I got to be a substitute teacher for Jess just last week. We had our 6-week collaboration, and we wanted to get her in with our preschool teacher to collaborate for the day. But we didn't have sub, and so I said, well, I want to go to early lit, so I went to early lit, and it was great. It honestly, when she talks about what they learned in just that one session that I was in, they did all those things. And it was even crafting, so we got to do a Yeti since it went with our carnival. So it was a lot, but it's really cool to see how far those students have come. We also included them when we did our iReady growth incentive for the school-wide incentive. we put them on since they had done the early bird screener. We put tickets in for them too. So one of our early bird, or early literacy students, was chosen and decided that she wanted to be Mr. Coin for the day so that she could make recess happen all day. So yes, we have seen amazing things happen. It's so fun to see them in the school. I feel like it's been a great stepping stone. I look at all of them and I'm like, yes, you are ready to come back and come to kindergarten next year. I mean, they're gonna be miles ahead because they've already been in the school learning new things. They know how to stand in line. They know how to write their name. I mean, all the small things that you want them to learn in kindergarten, they're already gonna be a stepping stone ahead. So excited about that, which is why we are going to do our next round of screening for the 2025-26 early literacy classroom program on February 24th. It'll be a Monday, and we are sending out flyers now. It was on our newsletter to say it was going to happen. They'll call the office, and Allie Farler has a spreadsheet, and we're gonna kind of do blocks of time. So rather than a scheduled appointment, there's gonna have like an hour time frame that they can pop in during that time to kind of get screened. The screening takes about 20 minutes to do, and we'll have a couple different screeners that day to be able to do it. That's, yeah, I guess another really great thing is Kara Rath from Kalispell Public Schools reached out, and they're going to do 2 different events that are just basically letting the public know what different schools have going on. And they're calling it a transition to kindergarten parent info night, and then a Bright Futures Family Fair. And they asked if we wanted to have a booth at those. And so the first parent info night is March 13th. So we're gonna have our flyers ready to go. And then the next one's on a Saturday. So I'm gonna go there hopefully with Gus and run a little booth that explains what our program will be too, so that we're not just having flyers, but they're advertising it as a Q&A with teachers, admin, representing valley-wide districts and schools. So I think it'll be a good time to be able to visit with there. And
It's a fun program. It really is. It's not nice to see, and they interact as much as they can with the kindergartners and, you know, and that, so.
we were able to make it so that one of their recesses, they go out with the preschool classroom, and then one of the other recesses, we split kindergarten in half in the afternoon. So 3 classes go out for one recess and 3 for another recess, and it's the best thing to not have all of them out there. But she joins one of them, and so it kind of gives them a good perspective of playtime.
Do you send the flyers to like all the preschools / daycares?
We actually go and deliver them. Yeah.
Nice.
That's kind of what we did last year.
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure out the best way.
Yeah.
It's tricky. Yeah, but I feel like word of mouth has already increased just with having it in the school now. So when people see it, it's not like, what is that? It'll kind of be like a reminder of, oh, I've heard about that. Okay.
And I think the parents too, of the kids that are there have been pretty good
Really good.
advocates. You know,
They've been really good advocates for us, yeah.
a bit of word of mouth advertising.
Yeah.
and things, so.
And I feel like we know a little bit more about the program when we're advertising it this time, so I could put a little more detail on the flyers. Before I'm like, I'm not really sure exactly what it's gonna look like, but come and get screened and then we'll figure it out afterwards. So I feel more confident in what's gonna be informational this time.
Well, I remember she came and spoke to us this fall with her.
Yes.
Yes,
And she had
yeah,
just
she had just
started,
started.
and
Mhm.
yeah, she's done an amazing job past that, like that, she came in hot, like
Ready
it
to
was
go.
hard, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a lot of, that was big ass building, yeah.
And she is using, I think it's worth noting, CKLA, so that's the program that she's using with it, but they have a, help me Lisa, preschool component, is that what we used? That she's, yep, so when we're talking about some of those, it's really cool because our fourth graders are also doing human body, and so they talk about how great this cycle is as it goes through each year, and it's already starting in preschool. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving into C, the Jumpstart Summer Program presentation.
Excuse me.
So under this early literacy component are actually 3 different kind of sub-programs that districts can consider. And so we are moving into including a second of those. So most of you are probably familiar with the fact that we have been doing an ESSER summer school program, ESSER funded summer school program. Those were the federal COVID dollars that supported our schools through that challenging time. And through that, we really were able to maximize that with a summer school program to support our students. That funding option
as evidenced by the end of the report that Lucy gives us every meeting, has ended. And so looking into kind of what is the future, we looked at this second phase of the early literacy program as an option. So we've been coordinating with the elementary school into what is called the Early Literacy Summer Jumpstart Program. The Summer Jumpstart Program is again, early literacy focused program for students entering kindergarten through entering third grade. So you, if you're from the South, you call them rising kindergartners up to rising third graders. And I'll let myself come out at that point. And so these little guys and younger students in our school still need some of those backings of that literacy model. If you hear some of our third grade, second and third grade teachers, they really talk about this transitional year that probably Jerry is very familiar with, in which the focus changes from learning to read to reading to learn lots of other things you'll be learning from here on out. And so we want to make sure we're giving them those foundational skills that we really start to see those needs developing even more intensely as that need. So the Summer Jumpstart Program is, there are some requirements if you are going to implement that program within your district. One is that you need to offer at least 120 hours of instruction over the summer. So that will look like, we think, about a 6-week calendar with about a 5-hour day. And that a Monday through Thursday, give them a little summer weekend. But that would give those students who are eligible and invited the opportunity to get some intensive literacy instruction throughout that time. We also recognize that literacy is across all subject matter. So like you heard when they were speaking about that classroom program model, we're talking about a lot of different things. We're talking about body systems. You're talking over a meal. And so some of those will incorporate literacy as it applies to many of our other core areas. So it's not 5 hours of phonics instruction. They'd all start walking out. The little one that wants recess all day would be like, still advocating for recess all day. But it's really a great idea to get people going over the summer, to give them what they intend to be the jumpstart into the next school year and the next learning objectives and standards that they'll face. So we will be providing things like transportation, food, and that will give some of that what will be missing from the summer school program to those students. The eligibility, the actual screeners that we use to determine eligibility are the same. So we'll use early bird for those rising kindergartners. We have looked into a way to screen. As you can see, there are a lot of reasons we're inviting that age group to screen right now. We are also stepping into a Child Find event, an activity. We, of course, do Child Find all year long, but sometimes we advertise it and invite them in. And so we've been really careful to avoid this like death and or confusion by screening invitation. And so I've been really grateful for the help that the elementary team has offered in that time. When those students screen, we will determine an eligibility category and invite them to participate. Their parents then can take us up on that offer and start bringing them in or participating in transportation for that. We perceive or kind of guess that maybe there will be about one teacher per grade level. So those rising kindergartners, first, second, and rising third graders. And what's really nice is that a verified screener for the early literacy summer jumpstart program is DIBELS 8, which we are already using with fidelity and have some skills in reading that data for those current kindergartners through current second graders. So we've got a little bit of an idea looking at that winter benchmark opportunity about the number of students who are currently in our building who may become eligible. And then, but however, we are required to do that final kind of assessment and determination during the months of April, May, or June. So we really can't start that full-scale screening until the month of April, which aligns really well for our rising kindergartners with that roundup. So there will be a station or stations set up during roundup where some of our educators will be visiting with students and saying hello, and using that early bird screener, which is a quick 10-minute shot that gives you a lot of great information. So that is that's the intention, to screen those students as we're coming in, and hopefully give some opportunities for those learning to read little ones. Yeah, questions on how that will differ or coordinate?
Approximately how many students do you think this will encompass?
Yeah, if we look at current students who are not at benchmark in their reading standards from the winter score, of course, we don't know the ones that are 4-year-olds right now. There were about 100 that were indicated across those kindergarten, first and second grade level. But we would look at really what need exists there. So those were students who were not currently at benchmark for their grade. But it'll take a little more data crunching. Maybe I'll invite Cole because he seems good at that to determine. Literacy is reading, but I think you're probably good at that too. I think he's got it. And so, we can determine if that really is the need. That does sound like a pretty. The hope is to really give them that quick shot. We were a little, I think originally when we saw the number 120, that seemed like a really big number, looking at a summer schedule. But when we broke it down into days, it really allowed for some depth, but also, we can do it within the months of June, July, and give families and educators that the 3 weeks of August to themselves. So, and still meet those requirements.
Do you know, I guess like the same thing as students and teachers then, since you won't know your actual numbers until April, like, does that make it tight then to find staff potentially by June? Or is that?
I mean, it's not easy. No, it's
No, I
not
was
easy.
gonna
anytime.
mention it's exact same kind of timeline that we've done before for Esther.
Yeah.
So we made our determinations about them based on data.
Okay.
And then we made our determinations about how many people we need.
Yeah.
And then open those positions. But yeah, so we're gonna go through a very similar process.
Yeah.
And it always worked out in the past that
We-
Now worked out.
We have staff already kind of reaching out and saying if this is an opportunity, I'd like to be a part of it.
even better.
Was Esther about the same number of hours?
Yeah. 6 weeks and yeah, 3 plus.
A bit longer days, but.
A little, I don't know, if they're like 5.5 or something.
Okay. But a little different focus, different age groups, of course, they're targeted. So I know that the building administrators are communicating as regularly as they can with the community to let them know that that particular program has sunsetted, but this one is available for students who are eligible, and we'll throw out those invitations so that families can start making their plans, because they make plans early and often too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll move on to item D, where WHS new course proposals for the 2025-2026 school year with Mr. Brown.
Greetings from the high school new course proposals department. There is no second bid. Thank you, everyone, and yeah, it's always exciting to come to this conversation. We try to stay innovative, we try to stay creative in what we offer our students, and really a testament to our staff. They're the ones that come up with these ideas and generate the conversations with the current students to find out what they may be interested in the future. They're having conversations with their colleagues and looking ahead at career pathways and what equips our students the best. So it's nice to stay fresh, adaptable. And so you have those 3 course proposals before you. And as you're looking at those, first of all, AP Physics. We currently teach physics, and it's a hard class. It's a rigorous curriculum, and our instructor, Tate Roxon, actually got trained in the AP Physics arena last summer. And so he used a lot of those skills the first semester here, and he's continuing to use those strategies and some of the course content. And finding that it's not a whole lot different than the current physics course that was taught. And of course, the students were like, yeah, if we're gonna take physics, we might as well get AP designation for it. So made a lot of sense in a lot of ways and really a testament to Tate to wanna take that on to a higher level. Video game design with Unity. That's a course that's again in our elective field and it helps us, our kids need to take either a CTE or a tech app credit which this applies to. And so that's nice. We have a little bit of flexibility towards some of their graduation requirements. And in this particular model, there's obviously a lot of interest out there in kids learning how to code and particularly with video game design. This gets into, lots of things like animation and 3D rendering. So just a lot of different skills that they can use it for in their future. The down at the bottom, the little disclaimer, the JBC, that's the joy and beauty of computing. And that note at the bottom of that area, and that's what some of these students will take as they continue to advance in computer science. So that's a dual credit class with FVCC. Okay. And then the last one there, the AP Spanish language and culture. We've been teaching a Spanish 3-4 combination class for several years at the high school. We're offering it and it's happening in the same classroom. It's a little bit of a divided curriculum, a little bit of differentiation going on there to try to, provide that fourth year. But we Kat Roach is our brains behind this, and she said, there's definitely an element of our student body that would like to immerse themselves really deep here. And you can read the course description. I mean, that's all they do is speak Spanish from the moment they step in the room until they depart at the end of the period. So, they're immersing as best as they possibly can. So anyway, 3 great classes to add to our repertoire from the world of AP. That brings us to 15 total AP classes that we offer at Whitefish High School. One of those being a pre-AP class, but that plus 14 others over the last decade. That's been a tremendous increase and just shows the level of overall rigor, how it's increased, and then the impact that has across all of the other courses when our teachers are teaching at that level and students are learning at that level and how it resonates into the others. So anyway, can I answer any questions?
Questions?
Will you do physics and AP physics?
No.
Or just operations?
It'll just be that one.
Got it.
But we will.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that?
Physics is hard, no matter what, so you might as well just.
It's kind of, didn't we do the same thing? We did the same calculus, where you were offering pre-calculus, then it was like, well, let's just offer the AP pre-calculus.
Exactly.
And you
Yep.
didn't see any kind of drop in numbers.
No. And that's what Cole teaches. AP pre-calc.
Just a clarification, because on the Spanish one, it does say at the end, students are required to take the AP Spanish exam. In the AP physics one does not, I guess, are some AP classes you are required to take it and others it's up to you to take it? How does that, I guess, work?
How that works is it's a typo.
Oh, yeah.
I actually noticed it just earlier today. I'm looking at how did the bullet go that was attached to that. All of our AP classes have that bullet attached. They're all required to take the AP exam. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was actually a test. And
I read my material.
anything else?
That was my question, Dave, too, was about the AP test for physics. You do look stellar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Is there any public comment? Yes, I am. Back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I move we approve the course proposals as presented.
Seconded.
Okay. Moved by Lucy, seconded by Katie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Everybody. Okay, moving on to E, the softball agreement with Mr. Mead.
Okay, so we've seen a few of these come before us, and this is just the last one, the softball agreement, the charitable gift agreement for softball. On the same format as the other agreements that we've reviewed before. So if you have any questions for me, I know you hadn't received this prior to our meeting tonight. But again, this is the same agreement that we've done for our other recent approvals on other activities. Any questions for me?
I think Darcy Schillinger, incorrectly. So,
Oh, good catch.
I don't know her.
You've seen the name.
Any other clarifying questions? Any public comments on this item? Back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I'm gonna be approved.
I second.
Moved by Feedy, seconded by Rainey. All those in favor?
I,
Moving on to item F, the design process discussion with A&E.
I think we can change it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. I'm Shane Jacobs. I'm an architect and project manager with A&E Design. So I just wanted to speak to a couple items, give you a quick update, answer any questions. First item was, I understand that last month there was a little conversation in this meeting about pre-bond language, pre-bond imagery. Just wanted to touch on that quickly and just talk a little bit about, I think Dan Simmons helped write your pre-bond language. We're very familiar with public work and working within that bond language, setting that bond language. Oftentimes, we weren't involved in the pre-bond process in this instance. But really, the way I think about pre-bond language, it tells us really the what, and then the rest of what we do in the design process is the how and where. I often joke, but it's half joking that it's delightfully vague, that it really gives us the bumper rails of how we need to work, what we need to do. But it leaves a lot of kind of open-ended process for how letting the design process take place. So there's still a lot of discovery that needs to happen, a lot of work that needs to happen with the district and the committee, a lot of good thinking that has to happen with our engineers in order to make the building stand up, function, achieve all the needs that the committee directs us to do. So the work is far from done at the end of pre-bond, but it's a great guide, and we got to work within that guide.
Thank you.
So within that, just a quick update. I see Luke Hammond with Tele Construction Advisors, your owner's rep is on the call. He's been working largely on site survey, RFP, and the GCCM, the general contractor construction manager selection process, so Q, RFP, and then an interview. Luke has been taking the stick on that, and we've been checking in regularly. And then we have initiated a few planning meetings. As you know, there are 2 different bonds for the academics and the athletics. So there's been 2 different committees, and then there's been really kind of 2 different teams formed within A&E, so we can be able to work on both of these kind of a little bit independently, but also need to tie them back together. And so there's very similar to the way the district planning committee is organized. There's a core committee, and that's really the way A&E is structured reciprocally there as well. So thinking that the athletics project probably takes its own course. It's a smaller project. It can move at a faster pace. And we're working hard towards that right now. And then really those planning committees are taking all of that pre-bond work, continuing to build upon that with what we call programming. So it's really identifying the list of the types of spaces that and the functions and the needs that go within those additions, and then planning them, how are they all arranged, and what's the relationship with each other. And then within that, developing some guiding principles, which is a lot of great foundational work early in design that helps us really make a lot of future decisions more automatic, because we got to really hold them up to what those guiding principles are that are developed with the committee. And so a great example of that, of something that's really hard to get into in pre-bond, but we started to touch on in one of our last planning meetings, is talking a little bit about culture and identity of the high school. And we were left with a little bit of a dangling kind of idea or question that we will ultimately figure out how to resolve, but I think it was a great analogy for the high school, maybe the district, Whitefish as a community. Flat Valley, Montana, it's how do we continue to be who we are culturally, yet plan for expansion? The growth is happening. So how do you maintain who you are while still doing that? So that's a great question it's a great big question to solve. And architects love to solve problems, so that's what we're setting out to do. But that's a great example of that kind of guiding principle or whatever the guiding principle that emerges out of that. And that's something that's really hard to solve for in pre-bond, but we need to be thinking about now. Are there any questions for me at this time? We'll make this a regular update to some degree. It might not be every month, but every other month.
Any question?
No, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks.
It's always great to check in and see what's going on. I like looking at statistics and hearing about it. Thank you.
Moving on to G, the final bond resolution. Bridget,
Hello, Bridget, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi, everybody. Are you ready for me to take it away?
ready.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm excited to be talking to you tonight about our really favorable results on the bond offering last week. Since we last met last month as a board, our bond finance committee was extraordinarily busy with that process really wrapping up last Tuesday, February 4th, where we offered our bonds, the 32,600,000 in bonds to the marketplace. If you break up those bonds into $5,000 increments, which is the increments that they were sold in, that was, 6,520 different individual bonds that were sold, and they were all sold that morning. So just as a little recap or kind of a full recap, tonight's resolution that you're going to adopt is just fixing the terms of the bond issue from the school board's perspective. And so what you're going to be able to do with this resolution is obligate this board and then every board after yours every year when you set the budget to make the appropriate levies to pay debt service. So I'll talk a little bit about the resolution and then I'll go kind of backwards to the process. But when we look at the resolution, the key part of that is found on page 8, really, and it talks about the security of the bonds and the fact that with this bond issue, and you're familiar with this process at the district because you've gone through bond issues before, but the bond proceeds at closing, which is next Thursday, February 20th, when you receive the bond proceeds and deposit those into the building fund, that's going to be the fund that the board uses to pay the costs of the construction as you move along the process. And so that section 3 of the resolution officially creates that construction account within the building fund that Lucy will manage. Lucy and I have a call on Thursday to talk about the investments of those funds and make sure that you're maximizing the investment opportunity, and those monies can all be used for the project. So that'll be a big bonus to the project. And as you guys just talked about, you have the academic side and the athletic side, and Lucy's also going to keep those separate. So we keep the money, the appropriate monies within each project. So you are maximizing the use and the projects for both those purposes. So the construction account within the building fund is going to be created by this resolution. And then also the debt service account within your debt service fund for this bond issue will be created as well. And so for the next 20 years, starting this next August, you'll be levying money to make the debt service payments. And those payments, I'm happy to say, as of last Tuesday, are going to be lower than projected to the voters. And so we will officially know after we come out of the legislative session. And we know what the legislature is going to do with regard to maybe, there's talk of lowering residential tax impacts even further. So we'll have, as soon as the session wraps up, we'll have a follow-up report to see kind of where we exactly landed. But as of right now, we're under where we projected to voters. So that was goal number one. And then goal number two, we will be able to maximize the investment earnings we just talked about. We have great news on the premium. Through the process, we were also able to upgrade the credit rating through an insurance policy to a AA credit on the bond issue. That lowered the yields on the bond and it enabled us to earn another 400,000 or so in bond premium for the project. And then also last week with favorable market conditions and locking at rates right at 4%, 4.005%. At that low rate, we were also able to generate about another 600,000 in premium. So all total, maybe another $1 million in premium and just favorable news for the taxpayers. So in all, we were really excited. I want to thank the committee because there was a lot of extra meetings the last couple of months. And again, that was Darcy, Shannon, Dave, and Lucy, the committee of 4. And there's a lot of paperwork and lots of fine print to get through the process, but everyone did a great job. And next Thursday, as I mentioned, we will be closing the bond issue and beginning those investments that we'll work on later on this week. The arbitrage rate on the bonds is 3.61%. And so that's the maximum amount since our bond issue is over 15 million. That's the maximum amount we'll be able to retain for the project. So if you were just hypothetically able to invest the bond proceeds at that 3.6% and you didn't have any draws, that could hypothetically be another 1.3 million, just over the course of investments over a year for the project. So we really are looking at great news for the project and exciting times as you guys begin your planning and your construction process.
Are there any questions?
This may be for Lucy. Who holds this money? Does the county hold it like all other school funds?
Yes.
And they invest it as we tell them to? Okay.
Any other questions?
I was just gonna clarify, I'm just really ignorant of most of this stuff. You said we got an insurance policy and that allowed us to go up to like the AA. What does that mean? What's the insurance? What are we insured?
Yeah, so it has been for the last probably 5 years ago or so. The insurance has become very reasonable to purchase at the time of issuance. So the insurance, we send the bond credit information out to 2 municipal bond insurers, and they look at the underlying credit and let us know that if they would be willing to insure the bonds, and then we can attach that AA rating to our bond issue. So the credit quality for all the bondholders escalates really high because not only do we have the backing of Whitefish schools, but then we also have an insurance policy that would further back the bonds. And so it raises the credit quality and lowers the yields that purchasers are willing to accept on the bonds. So we did the math on that difference. And so we picked up another 370,000 in bond premium for just the cost out of the premium of about 50,000. So that math really proved, we've seen the insurance companies for Montana issuers be really aggressive and give us a very low. So they're basically insuring the payments of the bonds over the next 20 years. And those payments total, 55,000 when you add principal plus interest. So they're insuring, those for those amounts for the next 20 years for a cost of 50,000. That elevated your rating, your credit quality on the bonds to AA and enabled us to lower the cost to taxpayers and generate a lower yield on the bond.
Let me just add a little bit here.
Thank you.
So what's important to note is that it's very difficult. From my understanding in these meetings, it is very difficult for schools in Montana to get it double A. We tried, we went out to the credit rating agencies and said, what is our credit rating? Hoping they would come back with a double A, and they did not. And that has been very common in Montana, as I understand it, is that just some of the intricacies of Montana, they just don't rate double A. So this basically increased our credit worthiness.
Yeah.
I just wasn't clear what we were insurance, right?
Yeah.
Insuring them all. Got it. Thank you for explaining it. Thank you.
Yes, that part of what I tortured the finance committee with. But Shannon, you did a great job. You get a double A for.
Any other questions? Is there any public comment? Back to the board for a discussion or a motion.
I just want to thank everyone on the committee and say, wow, it could have gone better.
It really couldn't have. It was, we were very, the only thing that would have been better is if we would have got the double A without the insurance.
But amazing.
You got it.
I don't think this is amazing.
Makes me really happy for the taxpayers.
Yeah, it's good that it came below the, what the taxpayers is. Additional bond premium. Great.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking, to be honest. Yeah, great. I move we approve. I second.
Moved by Katie, seconded by Quincy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, moving on to H, the graduate profile with Mr. Means and Mr. Brown.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna share a little bit information on our graduate profile. It's an exciting thing to present and share because we have spent a lot of time in this process. Really, we started in this process when we began last year talking about our strategic plan. We started talking about our current graduate profile, how it related to the strategic plan, and then we did some surveys then related to our strategic plan. Then we moved into this year. We did some surveys directly related to the graduate profile itself and the competencies that our community values, and it was really neat to see our different stakeholder groups, our parents, our community members, our students, our staff align in some really alike competencies we would like to see in our students as they graduate from the school district. So that common terminology, that's called a graduate profile, those competencies that we want to see in our graduates. So as we have discussed in our 2 K-12 graduate profile meetings to narrow those competencies to our top 6, we did that and we finalized that process in our last meeting where we looked at images. In front of you, you now have the graduate profile poster 1, graduate profile poster 2. Each have been adjusted with the group that we're working with. They did adjustments based on that feedback. So not only did they consider the collective feedback, but the individual feedback of the group. And then they put these together. So these are presented for your approval this evening, the graduate profile poster 1 and graduate profile poster 2. And the competencies are defined within the graduate profile poster 2. Important to note, there's a lot of different resources there to reflect on as well. There's surveys and things like that. The district and building action plans are directly linked to these because they are identified as how we're going to achieve our graduate profile of this in part. There's a lot of other things that we do, of course, but our district and building action plans are part of the way we're going to achieve the graduate profile. So with all that said, you can see poster 1 has the puzzle pieces. And you can see that there. I can pull it up on the other screen. I think most people have something to look at. So, and those who are online can look at those as well by clicking on them. Graduate profile poster 2. They did add a few of the puzzle touches to it, but you can see that they weren't able to do it throughout the document. But they did change the colors based on feedback, some of the font based on feedback, and some of the trees based on feedback. They changed some of the icons based on the feedback. So there's been a lot of changes in this page and a lot of changes in that first page too. Moving the graduate profile to the bottom, growing and learning together at the top, aligning the middle to be centered and not overlapping. So a lot of work was put into the feedback that was received in our last meeting. Yeah.
Is this appropriate? to
Yeah,
ask
jump
the
in.
question? One of the things I recall is that we had talked about getting rid of the blue and making it the blue be a lighter green or something, and I know that at least in our group, we had really talked about taking the blue out and making it the greens, and we discussed that, I know, in the big meeting. I don't see that change there, and I don't know if that's something anybody else was interested in, but we were.
I don't see blue.
I'm not sure I see
Oh.
blue either.
Oh, I see blue, then mine.
You mean communicator and responsible?
Oh,
Are those
It's
the
your
only
monitor.
things?
it's my monitor. Ah, well, let me look at it.
Sage green. It's like.
Mine is still blue.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, you.
Oh, but-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did adapt the
Okay, well, let me
colors.
look at this one.
Yeah, there you go.
No, that's. No wonder. Yeah, and the mountains are changing.
Yeah, because I was curious about that, because they
Well,
did think about it. So,
Yeah, hers is blue.
Yeah, yours is different.
Wow.
That's funny. Your monitor needs to be.
I don't know, we'll have to talk to the monitor.
I thought maybe it was your eyeball.
Always.
And you're right.
But they tried to incorporate every, I don't know if they got every
did.
single piece of feedback, but they tried to do a lot of it. and
Well, they-
Captured a lot.
Yeah.
They missed my comment about how much I hate that font, but
I was gonna comment on the font.
Oh. Well,
they're going and learning together, really.
Because I knew I was at your table and I was like, what did it
they, yeah, you know, they're a group that
I guess
works
it-
on these in a lot of variety.
I guess it's more a case of
Yeah.
the number of fonts.
There's
That's-
three fonts in one, it's like
Yeah.
a lot of fonts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are.
That's
But-
all of it.
There's some.
But that makes
There's
each
a lot.
part stand out more distinctively.
Well, there's other ways.
Oh, it's funny when you get into these conversations, because there is some artistic,
License.
That's fine. I'm not gonna not pass it because of,
Yeah.
I will
I was
register
wondering
my
if you're gonna
complaint.
notice. Be impressed with the icons. I was wondering how you would show adaptable, because remember it was the
Yeah.
puzzle piece.
Much better,
And we
yeah.
were like, that should work, and they got a good one.
Yeah, that's.
The gear that's moving, and the ethical one was the weird football thing.
Yeah.
That's what-
Yeah, they
Thank you
did a
for all
great
the
job.
behind the scenes work there.
Yeah, ethical's great and
without
adaptable.
the gear, they had they shared with Darcy and I looked at this together with them, and they shared multiple examples of adaptable, and the gear was aligns with
Well,
our
with the-
gear.
With the turn, yeah.
Yeah.
And responsible.
And given the speed looks way better. I would just say, given the amount of work that we've done, like it's all here, the strategic plan and all the action plans from the buildings, like I just feel like we've been. Doing a lot of this for the last 2 years. So it's beautiful to see it all come together, just with the last piece that it's good. It's exciting.
Any other, are you,
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's, this is what we could approve this evening, but there's always room to make adjustments. There's also more. That's not attached here. There are examples of Instagram posts that they have that make these move and you know, and all kinds of stuff that we'll be able to use as we move forward. And slight videos of these and things like that. So you'll see that. Those are examples that exist today that we can use, but this is the best we can come up with at this time for this decision this evening.
Can I just ask a quick question? No, sorry to interrupt, but just to throw up, because that is one of the things that we talked a lot about at our table too, is that it does need to go from like K through 12. Like it needs to be something that's integrated in each building. I'm just curious from all the buildings perspectives with all the tweaks, if it feels like something you could post in your building and your students at their age and where they're at would appreciate it. Does it feel like it would fit in your buildings? Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, great. That's really who has to look at it all day. It's not me. So. But explain it to the parents who walk in, like, what is that? Okay.
are there any other questions?
I have just one more thing to be pedantic about. I just was able to blow this up and read, as you know, I'm a huge advocate of the Oxford comma, and I would love it if they would insert one after action.
Bottom and like
Yep.
timeframe.
So between action plan and comment and. vote, yeah.
And like it should come up for the last end.
Writer. is fine.
Sorry.
Yes. He always finds the
He's
details.
really in the forest.
Yeah, you gotta really zoom in for that.
Well, he
Yeah, I had-
was zooming
I had to
because you
zoom
can't
in.
read it.
That's it. Between,
After
And-
action plan,
yeah,
before and
yeah.
building out. Okay.
Any other clarifying questions? Any public comment? Back to the board for more discussion or a motion. And
I say thanks to everybody for your work on this, and I'll move we approve with the Oxford comma added in the fine print.
I'll second that.
okay, moved by Katie, seconded by Jerry, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on.
It's as though anybody's gonna read that.
Okay, moving on to I, which is the MTSS PLT review process update, Mr. Mead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on our MCSS review and PLC review. And Genevieve Thomas from School Services of Montana is continuing that process. She's been meeting with MTSS and PLC teams. So that stands for a multi-tiered system of supports and professional learning community teams. And discussing what they're doing and how it's related to the standards in those areas. And she's also been reviewing documents and data as part of her review and information related to that process. And then we hope to go over that information in March. We'll show our recommendations for our next steps as we evolve in the PSS and PLC process in our district. So we're excited for that process and to hear the recommendations for our next step. Any questions about that?
We'll move on to J, which is a school climate survey process with an update with Mr. Mead.
So then again, this is another just update for you. We are completing the school's climate survey surveys, as you all know, and those have gone out to our parents, staff, and students. And we don't have those back yet. I thought we might have them today, but hopefully by tomorrow. And so hopefully we'll be able to review those with staff tomorrow, what we're hoping. If not, we'll do that very soon. And then again, we're going to be reviewing those very soon on the 25th in our work session. So we'll have that data from our third party who's conducting and tabulating results for us. So another thing we're looking forward to as our part of our continuous improvement process is looking at that data together. On the 25th.
We are moving on to K, which is a call for election.
Thank you. Presented for your consideration are two resolutions calling for election on May 6, 2025. The purpose of the election is to elect two trustees for a 3-year term. Additional general fund operating levies may also be requested if necessary. The resolutions give the district clerk the authority to cancel the election if the number of candidates who file for trustee positions equal the number of open seats, or if levies are not necessary.
Lucy, I have a question or two.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, when do you define the date that the ballots get sent out? Like, that's not in either one of these?
So that is a topic for a conversation probably during the next agenda item.
Okay.
In the past, it was me who determined the date when the ballots are mailed. This coming election, it will be the Flathead County Election Department. And we'll talk about it a little bit more in the next agenda item.
And the same with, you have the Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 prior to election day. Will we talk about when that commences as well?
That's the regular work hours of the district office here in the middle school building. So that is going to change.
Oh, well, I just meant the date. Like, when do you start accepting ballots then? I guess it depends on the date that it's sent out and then how soon after it's mailed.
Right. So usually, the first ballots can arrive as soon as 2 days after the ballots are mailed. Depending on how fast the post office, processes all the mail. So hypothetically, if the ballots go out on the 18th, if some of the voters receive their mail on the 20th and decide to drop the ballot that same day, they can do so.
Okay. So that probably says that when the ballot's mailed out, if ballots end up being mailed out.
Yes,
Great, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Is there any public comment on this item? Back to the board for a motion or discussion.
Move that we accept.
Okay, moved by Shannon, seconded by Quincy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, move on to L. Lucy.
Thank you. So, this, agenda item, will tell us a little bit more about some of the changes, that will take place in this year's election. Let me start with a little bit of a historical perspective for those of us who may not know, the history. So for several decades, Flathead County school districts were solely responsible for conducting their own elections. This practice was uncommon, as Flathead was one of only a few Montana counties where the county election department declined to conduct school elections. Recent leadership changes within the county election department, however, have resulted in a change for the upcoming May election. The county election department offered to conduct elections for those Flathead County schools that choose to utilize their services. Presented for your consideration is an agreement with the county election department to conduct the district's election on May 6, 2025. Any questions?
They contacted you? Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Did they reach out to you?
They reached out, not to me. It was, as you remember, we've been signing asking them to conduct our elections for a number of years. That effort, I wasn't the only district clerk, who was trying to have this change. All Flathead counties, election administrators were trying and fighting hard for this change. It was my counterpart at Columbia Falls School District, Dustin Sufalado, who took the lead on this issue, and we all got together and made it happen. And as I said, I think the main reason for the change is the change at the county level. I need to say that. The new election department director is a lady who comes from, she used to be the director of Lincoln County Election Department. So she's very experienced, and She looked at the way, the Planet County schools do this, and she said, this is highly inefficient. But there is a way to do this better. And, so here we are. So, you'll see in the agreement, there are still, areas, which I'll be responsible for as the election administrator. So I'll still be the election administrator, but we will not conduct, meaning we will not do the election hands-on. We will still be responsible for the ballot language, for the levy amounts. We will have, the district office will still serve as a ballot drop-off location, but that's where those responsibilities end. People's questions regarding to registration, lost ballots, spoiled ballots, things of that nature will have to be directed to the county. Wow. All of that. That's great. It will come at a cost, but the cost that will pay to the county will be less than what we will pay over. Because again, it's due to economies of scale. We will now have X number of school districts ordering the same election supplies. You know, stamping the same stamp and all that, so. Okay, on election day, May 6th, will still be open until 8 p.m. because that's the time when the door will close. And people always have to transport the ballot box to the county after the polls close. But we don't have to do no counting. All that is done by the judges at the county. In other words, the way it should have been done all along. So we're very grateful for the change.
And then how do they communicate the results?
We'll get that figured out. I'm sure that's.
We used to you knowing everything.
You know, I can tell you that the results will be available fairly quickly because they don't do a manual count. It's all machine read. Oh my God. So they can count thousands of ballots in a minute.
Wow.
And Lucy?
Yes.
Under number 10, it says the district will notify the county in writing of the proposed date 75 days in advance. And then the county could still say they can't do it for that date.
No, that will happen. That's a standard procedure.
Okay. So our date is pretty fixed and they'll be able to do it.
Yes, so the May 6th date, Rainey, is given by law. School elections always take place the first Tuesday in May after the first Monday in May. So that date doesn't change. And also, the Montana election law dictates when those mail ballots can go out. And there's a very tight window of about 3 or 4 days when by law you're allowed to mail those ballots out.
Thank you.
I will note that item 10 does speak to special elections, so that 75-day window would not apply.
It's a 7 window in our case. Yes.
But the item 10 that she was referring to specifically says special elections, so it wouldn't pertain really to this.
Do you know how many districts are participating?
At least 15.
Whoa.
So in the earlier item, you designated 4 judges. Do those judges just work for go to the county? So each district still designates
Yes.
a number of judges.
It still has to be per election law. It has to be somebody who lives within Whitefish school district boundaries.
But will they go down to the county?
Yeah, they will have to.
So they'll have 6 districts times X number.
Yes.
Perfect, okay.
That is correct.
Any other questions? Is there any public comment? Back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I just wanna say thank you,
Yeah.
Lucy. You have really like worked so hard for so long and it's so nice to be here.
You know, it was all of us, all the Flathead county clerks.
I thought maybe you went down there and throttled them.
But, you know,
surprised.
but I have to tell you, my last presidential election, I did not volunteer. As you know, I love the election process and I always volunteer with the Flathead County Election Office. And I was just, I said, I'm not doing it. Not saying that it had anything to do with anything, but just saying. It may have been more due to the fact that we had 3 elections here.
Yeah.
Within an 11-month period, so I didn't want to look at any more ballots.
Yeah.
And knowing that you were hand counting them when they can
Yes.
just automatically machine.
The
count them,
judges
it makes
were
it
hand
even more,
counting.
yeah, I just think that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So much more efficient.
Yes,
Yes.
it's been a long time
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, and even,
Thank
you know, one of the changes that's been sweeping the election world, is those, paperless voting systems. Okay, and you may not know about it, but by per law, we're required to have this, touch screen, election machine here, which, originally, those were implemented for ADA purposes, for people who are hard of hearing or have vision impairment. But I think what's gonna happen as time goes by, in the United States across the board, it will all be electronic and away from the paper. So the county has to program 20, 25, how many districts there are, different machines for each of our school districts. And you know, those machines were never used because people still do it the old fashioned way. They mail the ballot. They don't come here and touch the buttons. Now at the county, you can have one machine and it can include data and different ballots for X number of.
Choose your district.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much more efficient.
Yes, so, you know, we're grateful to the, new director and her team, at the county.
Thank you for being persistent.
I know, and also grateful to you for all the years that you did
Yes, you've done
take
it.
on all this extra work. So
Yes.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Okay, I move you.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, moved by Katie, seconded by Quincy, all those in favor.
Aye.
Yes, unanimous.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, moving on to M, out of district students with Mr. Needs.
Make this quick. Administration recommends approval of the out-of-district enrollment applications for the following students. Where's our?
Sequentially.
Any questions? Any public comment? Back to the board for discussion or a motion.
I move we accept these out-of-district students.
Second it. Moved by Jerry, seconded by Katie, all those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. N, personnel recommendation for hire with Mr. Meeks.
Okay, you can see we have a few coaches for hire. One of them looks familiar, and then we have some guest teachers as well. Recommending hire.
Any question? Any public comment? Back to the board for a motion or discussion.
I move to approve.
Okay. Moved by Katie, seconded by Quincy, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, moving into reports. You did?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Clark.
We should just go with the same, I try.
I know.
I do try.
So trustee announcements. And on here is start times for special meetings prior to work session.
Yeah, that was just put in there because it came up, I think, in the conversation recently, and that would be something to discuss. trustees, if you, one of the ideas I think that was shared was to start those special meetings if we have a higher special meeting. Since we've been doing some of those to make sure we have consider recommendations for hire prior to a work session. Right. What would be the start time, the preferred start time?
I think it was also, when we have special students to approve.
Potentially, yeah.
Right, so we were meeting at 5:45 and the question was, should we just always meet at 6 and then have our regular meeting started at 6:15 on the night?
Here.
Yeah.
That would be easier. It would be easier.
It would be easier, especially
let's
for
keep
people
track.
who are
Yeah.
still working.
Exactly, also it's a lot to keep track of. Like, remember
Yes.
that.
Yeah, it's like too
It's
much
always
to
six.
remember, yeah,
Right.
and it's just
Yeah.
6, yeah.
Does it work okay for you?
It works great.
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And then
It works best.
the other meeting can just start at 6:15.
6:15, so that just changes how they have to notice it, right? That's
Yep.
6:15,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yep.
Okay.
That's great.
Any other trustee announcements?
I just want to thank everyone who worked on all these bond committees and
Yeah.
finance committees. Yeah. Like this architecture and building stuff is a lot of committees. Something huge.
Yeah.
Confusing. I want to see too.
A lot of detail, but.
I'm excited to see these graphs.
Yeah.
They're gonna be amazing. I'm so
Okay, we'll move on to B with Superintendent B.
Okay. So, again, you've got calendars in front of you. We've already gone over a lot of the events. Again, Jake Dunker things that.
Yes.
I don't know what, is that a competition?
Everything.
All the time.
Well, he did win a competition, the state competition.
Lots of them. Multiple.
I don't know what he didn't win.
That's right.
So we've gone over a lot of events coming up and what's going on in our schools, which is great. Enrollment, you have that attached there. You can see there's some fluctuations up and down in enrollment. That typically happens this time of year. Actually, it's pretty consistent with previous years. And so we'll be continuing to watch that. You also, we have important information here about resignations and retirements. Before I go to that though, I wanted to talk about just some legislative updates. I think, we all receive updates and information regarding some of the legislative bills that are going through or being considered. And some that I just wanted to highlight that SB 204 and SB 205 are ones that I'm watching really closely. And I think it's important for us to keep our eye on those, as those would force existing voter approved levies to be either sunset or subject to unpredictable reapproval rate. Basically, they would identify that we would have to open up them to be reapproved in 10 years. If we've had something approved within the past, we would have to have it reapproved every 10 years.
For example, a bond.
Yes.
No, a levy.
Levy.
No, levies.
So currently levies, once you levy a certain amount, it's
It's-
permanent.
Right.
And this would make it
But you,
effectively a 10-year levy.
you'd have to go back.
So has the potential to really impact our budget
Yes.
significantly. So it's something to keep our eye on, and SB 205 is another one, which would raise the voter turnout for levies. Succeed. So it's another one that's going through the legislature and being considered at different levels as well. Just wanted to highlight a few of those. And of course, there's a lot of different bills that are being considered right now, but I wanted to touch on them.
Like a percentage of voters that has to vote on it in order for it to
Wasn't
count.
it, is it 60%?
I think it was going up to 60%, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody gets 60%.
No,
No.
which would mean
That's the
nothing
point.
would pass.
Is that the intent behind it?
That's-
Yes,
that's
it's
the
just to make it-
intent.
Okay, I was like, why would you ever, and how do you do 60? So, okay, got it.
Also the one that makes us put 10 commandments up in school,
Yeah, that one is, where is that?
hopefully burned.
I don't know, there's a lot of them being considered right now.
Yeah.
So we will be, watching this closely. Of course, you get updates as well, and information related to those.
I was gonna get emails back when I'm emailing the legislators. It's interesting how many of them email me back.
You do.
I emailed 8 representatives yesterday and 1 got back to me.
Which one was it on? Which do you email about? Which one?
320. And I was straight.
I was told no as well, and it made me sad. I thought my letter was great.
I just
All right.
copied and pasted a template to everybody.
So in front of you, I'm sorry,
Go ahead. Go
do you
ahead.
have a question?
No.
Okay, yeah, so in front of you, you also have resignations and retirements, and you see those, you know, we look forward to recognizing our retirees at the end of the school year, which we do every year for their service and dedication, I'm sorry, to the students of the Whitefish School District, so. Any questions?
A lot of returns.
Yeah, we're the teachers. And it's probably not the last version.
No.
I think I'm also just,
A March one, so we still have 2 weeks to go.
I just continue to anticipate the challenge of hiring with our housing challenges. And so I feel like a lot of these people that retired, they've lived here a long time, they have housing, it's gonna just be interesting. I know we talked about it more last year, I feel like, this year, 'cause it's just, but. Yep.
See, business department, are you ready?
I am. Ooh. Greetings from the business department. We have to say that every time.
I know.
We all do, we all do.
If we wait for it.
The usual monthly reports, cash balances, general fund, other tax levy funds, and then many pages of budget to actual, which I'm sure you all read. I'm looking forward to beginning the project and having some new exciting charts and numbers. So we don't put you to sleep.
So we don't lose interest.
Yes. The same things. Everything on the fiscal end is where it should be for this time of the year.
I have a question, it's kind of big, but I just feel uneducated. What does it mean if the Department of Education closes? Does a lot of our money come from there, and what does that mean?
So a lot of those grants that we're getting had been put into law, such as title or idea, before the Department of Education had been established.
Okay.
That's the way I understand. It was established by President Carter.
Okay.
But those funding, the funding that we're getting it precedes the establishment of the Department of Education.
Okay.
So I can tell you, I'm sure that Dave knows more about the history than I do, but it doesn't automatically mean that we're being cut. We may lose some of the smaller, what we call competitive grants, where we, we're talking $10,000, $20,000, and we have to submit an application and we either get it or not. We may be losing those. But I didn't see that as a significant risk to us.
What about like IDEA?
I think it shouldn't go away today.
They administer the funds, but somebody else could.
Yeah, I think, you know, and I've heard a lot of different things, I think there's just a lot of unknowns right now.
Okay.
We just don't know what it all means. I think it could shift that responsibility to the state. They could then have those funds delivered to the districts. But we don't know, really. I think if you think about it, really, the IDEA and special education is funded at much less than it was proposed to be funded.
Yes.
So it was supposed to be 40%, it's not even close to that.
Yes.
And states make up that difference. So what will happen? Shift to the states, right? So there's a lot of unknown things there. And then Title I has been funded for many years, and that funds districts for the number of low-income students within your district. It's designed to meet the needs of those students who need extra support in that reading and math. I've heard different reports that possibly those Title I funds would just carry over to the states and the states would administer those. So that's possible, but I don't think we know.
But in terms of like what you were saying about got the money beforehand, if it did close. We have, like, the money that we're operating on now, we have for a year, right? So if something, it's like, they're like, it closes tomorrow, it wouldn't really affect us for a year, it would affect us immediately, or we don't know.
It wouldn't affect us immediately for 24-25,
Okay.
but it would affect us for 25-26.
Okay, so we have money up to
To
one
June
year.
30th,
Okay.
we got it.
Okay, okay, good, okay.
Yeah, June 30th, we're solid.
I would agree with what Lucy said too, though, that I've heard for the most part, those funds will continue, like the larger grants like Title I special. We don't, we're just waiting to hear more information to get a little bit more information, clarity about what that's.
Okay, because I wondered like how you would do your budget if you don't know how much money you have.
She does it now.
But now you know.
Well, you know, with IDEA, for example, IDEA grants, those funds and title, they have been decreasing over time.
Right.
Every year, little by little, so I always say, well, and they don't tell you until September.
After you've already, after you've approved the budget. Yeah, for sure.
So I say, okay, I'm just gonna, you know, say, I'm gonna say a 10% reduction. Just have a, you know, guesstimate. In this case, I would have to say not 10%, I'm just gonna lose $500,000. With that, you know, and that's a hypothetical.
Right,
I
right.
hope it never
Right.
comes to that.
Right. I just, yeah, wanting to know that it wouldn't be like immediately or bigger, you know, like nothing in back.
No, it wouldn't be tomorrow.
Right.
But the other
Thank you.
thing is if the money then went to the state, isn't the state going to have a lot of new people or gear up on
Yes.
how they're gonna get the money out to the districts? I mean, so you're just moving the burden from the Department of Education to the states who are gonna have to gear up.
Yeah, all hypothetical, but interesting too. Yeah. I like how you're always so calm. Yeah, thanks, Liz. Thank you.
What can you do?
It'll be good in the end. That's my approach. It'll be good.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucy.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for Lucy?
I just, because both of our reps commented on IDB coming up. And I just want to reiterate as we look at, or if you could clarify, it does come up when we're in bargaining, but what percentage of our budget goes to staff?
It's 90% of the general fund budget,
It's clarified.
and the rest is paid by these grants that we just talked about.
Yeah. This 9%.
So another question, so then potentially if you lose some of those grants, then you might also lose some staffing.
Yeah, I think there's so many unknowns. I think
Well,
what we're
yes.
hearing most of is that those continue in some manner, but yeah, I mean, potentially if those funds, we didn't have those. To consider staff.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move into the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Any public comment on the consent agenda? Back to the board for discussion on motion.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Jerry, seconded by Shannon. Those in favor?
Aye.
One more motion. We adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Quincy, seconded by Katie. All those in favor?
Aye.
I know. Yes, I say.
Yay. Just so it's-
I know.
That makes me weird. Program.